Okay, welcome everyone to the Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025 session in our series on innovations in AI from Asia. This is the 33rd year that our center has produced a public seminar series in autumn quarter, usually on some topic in advanced technology from Asia. So today, First of all, self-introduction. I'm Richard Dasher. I'm the instructor of the course. So I wanted to give an overview about what we're going to talk about today. First of all, just a few words to kind of put a point as to why we're all here. The goal is really to share the newest information that we can get about what's going on in AI in Asia. Most of the sessions in this series will be by guest speakers from specific companies or people who have kind of overview perspectives of what's going on in Asia. It's presented by the US Asia Technology Management Center, which is an industry-funded, membership-based industry affiliates program at Stanford. We now have about 20 member companies. I'll be the main host of the series and moderate most of the sessions. I also want to say a special thanks to Shane Gu, who is a senior research scientist for Google DeepMind, and also to Professor Tatsunori Hashimoto, because they've really been help in kind of vetting our possible speakers, and they will be giving sessions themselves later on in this series. So we will go every Thursday from now through December the 2nd. There will not be any class on November 4 because that's Democracy Day, right? Go out and vote. Or November 27, which is Thanksgiving Day. The best place to find out what's going on is the homepage of our center, asia.stanford.edu. And as you see from a very nice mixture of people in the audience, it's open to the public and it's available to Stanford students for course credit. This is something we've been doing ever since we did these seminars, and we want you to learn from each other. We usually put out some light refreshments afterward, and we would really like for you to meet each other. So students, try to stay around if you can. Maybe these people will offer you a job later. It's good networking. Anyway, to get the course credit, if you're a Stanford student, you can register in any of 3 departments, only one, and it's no prerequisites. It's open to anybody at the university, even though a 400 series looks kind of scary sometimes. Please take a look at the syllabus, which is on Canvas. We can get a copy to you by email if you need it. Our seminar requirements are a little bit different from some other seminars that are kind of similar around the university. Basically, 2 things. You need to attend in person each week. After COVID, Stanford really wants people to come back in person. Now, of course, one session is excused anyway. All of this is in the syllabus. And if you need some sort of an accommodation, talk to me. The second main thing is a weekly comment that you send to me, send by email to me, and also to our course assistant who just walked out. Oh, Tyler, where are you? Are you still, he was passing out the surveys. Okay, anyway, Tyler Ho is our course assistant this quarter. So if you have some kind of an issue, basically, if you can't meet the requirements of the course as stated, if it's something that's discretionary, like you're going to a job interview, we'll work out a makeup assignment. If it's something required by Stanford, for instance, you're on a sports team and you have to be somewhere for a practice or a game, then I'd waive the attendance that day and expect you to watch the video afterward and then send me the comment. So the comments have to say this. The whole point is to get you to reflect on what was said in the seminar. And so we want something in your comment that shows that you actually watched the program, not just a summary of the slide deck. And especially if you put the video into ChatGPT and get a summary, I'll probably know. And that's not something you should do because, you know, for you, we want you to reflect on the content. If I do send you a note back and say, no, I can't accept that, you have to redo it. And you can redo it again until we work it out. But yeah, that's a little more strict than some of the seminars around campus, I know. Anyway, welcome everybody. What I'm going to do today is first give a good introduction to the current state of AI and also a few kind of specific overviews for some select Asian countries and just mention briefly what's happening in some of the later sessions in the series. So our title is Innovations in AI from Asia. So innovation is not just technology development. Innovation is really how the human race has survived all these years. We're not the strongest animal in the jungle. We're not the fastest animal in the jungle, but we build better tools than just about anybody else. So innovating is responding to or anticipating some sort of a change, whether that's a threat or an opportunity, by creating new value. This is an interesting concept because you can't have value unless somebody else agrees it has value, right? So taking something all the way to the market is essential in a process of innovation. Otherwise, basically, you've got technology development. You can have new technologies that create new value, new combinations of existing technologies, new business models, or even new pricing is an innovation. And there's also innovations to the context, enabling technologies and the supply chain and innovations in regulation. So we're going to take a broad view of innovation in the series. Some of the sessions are going to focus more on technology and others are going to focus more on the business side. So AI. I think the term artificial intelligence was first used in 1956. Interesting how AI was used first. And then they came up with the idea for machine learning. The first time it was used was 1959. But basically, everybody got all excited and then disappointed that the computing power really wasn't there throughout the 1980s. There were some expert systems that were doing inferencing that were quite good in the late 80s and early 90s. But what really was a huge change was a switch from being rules-based to being data-based or data-driven. And data-driven knowledge discovery really picked up in the late 1990s with things that were called data mining. And also you had, specific algorithm types that were being developed. Even then, AI was kind of peripheral. The real boom in AI started with deep learning. And the image processing project that Professor Fei-Fei Li was doing here at Stanford was a huge impact in this. But I think that we have to admit that the conditions were perfect for a major technology wave. Deep learning AI would not have been nearly as impressive if you didn't have really easy data storage across multiple platforms using the internet with very fast and very cheap data communication, data transfer, and also data processing. It really helped that we had these big IT provider ecosystems by 2010. Google was already a big company by then. Microsoft, of course, was huge. And so really the AI age kind of really kicked off around 2010. And a major kind of battle in this revolution happened with the release of ChatGPT in November of 2022. Just a couple of slides to clarify what we're talking about. So artificial intelligence always involves machine learning. The two terms are not exactly synonymous. One of the problems is that different people use these terms in different ways. But what you have is you have a system that, for instance, might just be doing sensing or detection. If you think about a threat detection, looking for an intruder using a video system, or voice or face recognition is really just sensing and detection. The more it does that, the more it learns from its previous answers and the more accurate it gets. But it can not only sense and detect, it can go all the way to do analysis. And one of the features of AI these days is that the natural language processing is remarkably advanced. So, you also have basically equipment and failure prediction. Um, you can have you can have a system analyze the stocks in your portfolio, your kind of portfolio investments, but just tell you, basically on the basis of that portfolio, what is weak and strong and so forth. When it gets to contextualize this, its analysis more to your system, that's when it can start to make a recommendation. The contextualization of what kind of analysis it's doing will allow it to say, I know that you're doing kind of aggressive investing, so you might want to buy this, but the next person that might say, I know you're kind of conservative as an investor, and so maybe you don't want to do this. So things at that level include GPS route planning. It will make a recommendation based on a number of conditions to the particular, self-driving car or whatever. And the kind of the ultimate level is automation. So robot process automation, old style chatbots before generative AI. Self-driving cars are definitely AI systems, intelligent robots. And with generative AI, what you have is you have synthetic data being automatically produced. Images, language, code, whatever. So kind of the difference is that the traditional approaches to AI really are using algorithms that lead to a problem solution. With generative AI, you're creating new data. Now, that new data may be the predicted next item in some sort of a series. So a lot of times it's going to look like a problem solution, but it's arriving at it in a very different way than traditional AI analysis. Now, there is overlap in the kind of algorithms that are being used. They both use a lot of deep learning infrastructure. But one big difference is that traditional AI, you have to train the data for the specific problem that the model will address. But by definition, generative AI uses pre-trained models. ChatGPT, generalized pre-trained, is what GPT stands for. So, typically this is, with generative AI, you're not looking for an absolute right or wrong answer. You're looking for what is probably the next thing that will happen. And that's a very important distinction. Now, in business, this is from McKinsey's survey in March this year. Now 78% of all organizations are using AI in at least one business function. You might be surprised to find out that executives use AI even more than middle managers. Anybody have an idea why? Meeting summaries, automated meeting summaries. But notice how since 2022, the end of 2022, the rise in the use of generative AI has been really amazing. So, what are people using? What kind of data are they creating using generative AI? Text is 63% of all of the things created, but that's ChatGPT. images. Midjourney or DALL-E or some of the other engines that will give you deep fakes. Every generative AI output is a fake. It's synthetic data, but it's not necessarily trying to deceive. It's really trying to answer the question that you're giving it. Computer code. So people are using AI quite a bit to code. Video output is increasing. You've got voice and music output, and sure, there's other. So basically, one of the, when one term you'll hear a lot in code creation is vibe coding, where you use natural language to tell the system what kind of computer program you want it to write, and then the system will write the computer program for you. You must edit it at the end. You must check it to make sure that it works. It's great for drafting, but it's not to the point you want to trust it otherwise. So companies in using AI are finding that they can either cut costs, achieve cost reductions, or they can get new revenue. The interesting thing about generative AI is that the companies making a lot of cost reductions are relatively few, right? 20%, 30% or so. Most of the companies are really getting less than 10% cost reduction. Yeah, less than 10% cost reduction is what they're achieving by using AI in these different business functions. On the other side, if they're getting new revenue, if they're getting new income from it, that too, most of them are increasing their revenues by less than 5% by using generative AI. So that's still kind of an indication that it's in its early stages. Its direct connection to value is not really that great. But sometimes I think the whole internet evolution looks like dog years, right? We have an entire generation of technology once every 6 months now. I see really about 3 phases, and admittedly they overlap, since the introduction of ChatGPT. The first phase was building big, large language models, the models for generative AI. They are becoming so big that the amount of data required, that the amount of money required is really prohibitive from most startups. It's become the provenance of a select group of golden opportunity startups and the big players. The second phase, which started really within about 6 months of the release of ChatGPT, was focusing more on getting business value from Gen AI. So like the iPhone, what happened to most of the entrepreneurship? You had tons of startup companies built using the iPhone platform. So people are building applications, AI applications that take advantage of the giant generative AI programs. There are, in this stage, some attempts to improve the efficiency so that it doesn't cost so much money to train a model. A model can be trained quicker. And DeepSeek from China was a very good example that surprised everybody, and it really shouldn't have. This was something that was going to happen from somewhere. Somebody was going to make this kind of process of model creation that was getting so big to be more efficient. And the third phase, which is really this year, is the age of AI agents. Right now, I think we're seeing some innovations that may actually come to center an even new phase in this evolution, but let's save that and talk about that in later weeks. I mentioned AI agents, so just one slide on how an AI agent works. An AI agent tends to be built on the large language models of generative AI, but unlike ChatGPT, it's really much more autonomous. It has its own perception, planning, reasoning, and action functions inside the AI agent that use a variety of resources, including learning from itself, whether it gets a correct solution to the problem or a solution to the problem it doesn't like very much. So it's observing as well as listening to your original instruction. It's observing and it's analyzing what to do, and then it actually triggers some sort of an action to happen. That action can be visualization, it can be execution of code. Actually, in some ways, most AI systems have aspects of an AI agent, but the term AI agent is really being used an awful lot because it's very popular. It's a hot term now. To illustrate that, let's look at the Gartner hype cycle. So the Gartner hype cycle is a way of categorizing the evolution of a particular technology. So this is the hype cycle for everything associated with AI. And in 2023, at the very pinnacle was generative AI. Now, after everybody's expectations become inflated, usually there is what Gartner calls a trough of disillusionment. Sure enough, the Gartner hype cycle for 2025 shows generative AI midway down the trough of disillusionment. The other thing that it shows that it didn't even mention in 2023 was AI agents. You will not find the word AI agent anywhere in this discussion of words associated with AI. But right now, AI agents are at the very peak of the hype cycle. So, okay, this shows where they are in maturity. Why are people becoming disillusioned with Gen AI? Well, to some extent, it comes from what your expectations are. Remember, it's creating new data. So when it generates something that looks like the next item in the series that it predicts, it's got its own kind of, sense of probability. Not everything is going to be correct. It's not looking for correctness. It's looking for probable next item. And that means that what people call hallucinations, giving you the wrong answer, are really a feature of generative AI. It's not a bug. So the major models, I almost put a slide on this. The major models in use in the United States have hallucination rates of around 1.2 to 2%. And the less used models, hallucination rates are higher than 2%, which means that you get interesting output sometimes that you really don't want to see. That's one of the problems. And granted, another reason for that problem is that prompt writing is not trivial. Think about doing internet search. There are some people who are really gifted at doing internet search. And you ask them to find something on the internet before the days of, Gemini telling you what you should look at. Before those days, they would just find all kinds of information. And other people just didn't know how to write the search string. So you've got the same thing with prompting for Gen AI. The other thing about Gen AI that is definitely disturbing is how expensive it is. Not only for the providers of the models, and you see up there is an estimation back in 2023 that in spring of that year, ChatGPT was costing OpenAI $700,000 a day just to operate. That's its cost. That's not the prices it was charging. Of course, it was, giving freemium subscriptions and so forth. But the company costs are also much higher than expected. Last year, in 2024, 42% of companies canceled their Gen AI projects. And this is especially taking place in the code writing area because the systems take a lot of processing of lots of tokens in order to write code. In 2023, the number of companies that canceled their Gen AI projects was only 17%. So yeah, people are more disappointed. People are also aware of the risks, right? Yeah, there is concern about misuse. There's a lot of concern about what the regulations are going to be. And this doesn't really hit the IT AI community so much as it hits the potential customers, right? Traditional industries really need to be kind of soothed about using AI. And, we're having cybersecurity attacks on AI systems, of course. Anytime you have a new technology, bad people will try to break into it. So that's kind of lowering that, but the spending on AI is still incredibly huge. If you look at all the money spent on AI in the year 2024, no, that's 26. Here's 24, 25, 26. In 24, $987 billion. In this year, their estimation is almost $1.5 trillion. And the estimation for 2026 is $2.02 trillion being spent on AI. Now, a lot of that is not on large language models, right? The Gen AI models are accounting for only 25 billion of that spending. It's the AI services and AI application software that together are the biggest kind of things that people are spending money on. So yeah, they want AI to do things for them. They're looking at the business value that they can get from AI. But it's to the point that The Economist covered a couple of weeks ago, I think it was September 13 was the date, talked about, what if the $3 trillion AI investment boom goes wrong? And then the most disturbing sentence, even if the technology achieves its potential, plenty of people will lose their shirts. Oh, this means bubble, right? And it sure starts to look like we're in an AI bubble. The valuation of AI companies versus the valuation of non-AI software companies is drastically different, especially the more the company grows. Now, one reason that that valuation has to go up like that for an AI company is it costs that much money to scale up the technology development. That's an issue. But besides the startup valuations, worker salaries are very high. At the same time, I'm seeing this separation of the world into the insiders, the insider community, and everybody else. The insider community are the venture capitalists that are big enough to lead mega deal investments of over $100 million. There were 227 investments of over $100 million in a startup company in a single round in the first half of 2025. And that's up from 170 in the 6 months at the beginning of 2024. Now, this indicates that these investors really are expecting much higher valuations even after a company goes public. So you've got what? OpenAI, which is still a private company, is $10 billion of investment, I think is their current discussion about fundraising round. So the company is valued at like $200 billion as a private company. If they ever go IPO, what kind of value can that company have? Will it have $1 trillion value from the first day on the market? That's getting to be a little unlikely. And one of the things I'm seeing is kind of the FOMO phenomenon, fear of missing out, seems to be driving investors. So a giant AI, one of the ones, I probably shouldn't name names in this context, but you know who I'm talking about, is putting together a big investment deal. It doesn't have to be a mega deal. And they give a medium-sized or a small VC the chance to invest in it. Oh, we've got to get on that bus. Not only because the big company has something that must be great, otherwise they wouldn't be investing. But it also has to do with our social status. We want to be in the middle of this deal. So there's something that really seemed to me to be golden opportunity startups. An entrepreneur who left a big IT firm like Google or Meta or one of the others who's a hot AI engineer, plus a famous investor early on, plus some hot AI topic that's up at the top of the Gartner hype cycle, right? So when you have that, those companies are just making money at a remarkably rapid rate. We'll see a few of them when we look at China. I don't think I have any listed here in the US, but I heard about a company the other day that was less than 6 months old, and they're doing a pre-seed round of $50 million, minimum investment $5 to $10 million. And basically the VC who was telling me about this deal was saying how much pressure there was to move fast. Okay, this looks a little bit like a bubble to me. So what does Silicon Valley do in a bubble? We turn it into an opportunity. Think about it. The very large investors, they may lose money on 99% of their deals. But if the one company that they have invested in turns out to be the Google after the bubble finishes bursting, they're going to make an incredible amount. So, invest in Google in 1999 before the dot-com crash is kind of that mentality. But everybody else is really thinking about creating value that will have resistance no matter what the economy does. And in our current uncertain conditions, this is absolutely great advice. So there's a lot of AI companies, startups, that are really aiming at making improvements to AI efficiency. Small language models. So the models were just getting huge and taking an awful lot of energy and a lot of money to operate. So let's do a special purpose model or some kind of a way of doing model management that will let us have smaller models. Or optimizing the infrastructure. For instance, doing more AI processing at the edge. Think about it. A self-driving car is doing an amazing amount of processing. It generates about a terabyte of data every 4 hours or so of being run. And so if you have a way to process more of that data without transferring it into the cloud, you have a much more efficient approach. And then the other kind of major thing that Silicon Valley is interested in are transformative applications. AI will always be good for problems that humans can't do in a reasonable amount of time or with a reasonable amount of intelligence. So if you look at the challenges of drug development, especially biotech-related drug development, not only do you have millions of choices of compounds that have millions of possible associations with different, processes in the body, but you have the vector substances that these compounds are attached to in order to deliver them. You're looking at tens of millions of variables in one problem. And, my slide rule just would not handle that. So, the other kind of things are things that have incredible cost benefits over current approaches. And a lot of the automation, this is why AI agents are very popular, because you can see the savings kind of immediately. The other thing that's happening in the Valley is that we're continuing to research major breakthrough developments. Artificial general intelligence. So this is where I had real trouble with labels not being used consistently. You have AI agent. When you have a system that uses multiple AI agents that have to be orchestrated into something, sometimes people are calling that agentic AI. for the whole AI as agenda. And then one step beyond that, the more kinds of problems that you can apply AI to, that system to, then you have true artificial general intelligence. General purpose humanoid robots or quantum computing are also areas in which the Valley is quite active. So this is the way it looks in Silicon Valley. Now, to understand what's going on in Asia, I think that it's worth making a sloppy division of Asian economies into two. There are the companies that really aim to compete at the worldwide leading edge of AI. And certainly US, China, that's the big tech competition right now. But I would also say that Japan is in that group, South Korea, Singapore, and even United Arab Emirates. United Arab Emirates has been allowed to buy some fast chips from NVIDIA, and they already have a model that is considered the fastest in the world. I remember the name of it, K2 or something like that, in what it does. Then everybody else really are looking solutions not to be controlled by the countries in Group 1. So this is where you really hear countries using the term sovereign AI a lot. They want to have a competitive technology stack all the way from chips up to the application layer. And most of them are really looking at the positive development for their industries. They haven't really started acting protectionist yet. With the possible, in Asia anyway, with the possible difference of Europe, which does seem to be a little bit kind of on the protectionist side there. The other point is they're very concerned with talent pool development. And you have the countries wanting to have frameworks developed that meet their national situations better. India is a great example. India has 22 official languages, right? Multilingual language models here, would be dealing with garden variety European languages and, maybe Japanese and Chinese and Korean. Whereas, you not only have languages, but you've got hundreds of dialects inside India that people really need to be able to use and use well. India has a much lower literacy rate than throughout East Asia. What's the solution if you're an AI provider? Voice first, voice interface. Don't convert voice to text and then analyze it. Really use the voice for analysis. And the other point is in both India and in Southeast Asia, you cannot charge the same kind of cost to companies to use AI that you can here. So looking for lower cost alternatives is going to, motivate a lot of innovation work in those countries. So let's look at some of the countries a little bit. In the year 2017, as part of its national AI initiative, the State Council of China made a formal statement that they would make India the global leader in AI by the year 2030. So how they're going to do this involves combining government strategy, a lot of industry policy, meaning government policy toward industry development, plus regulation and a lot of money from the government and also from private sector. They're doing things from the ground up because they don't have access to a lot of the technologies from the United States. Interestingly, just last month, they announced the AI Plus initiative to deploy AI across traditional industries in China. So they want full integration of AI into daily life in China by the year 2035. So government and industry working closely together have created a very robust R&D infrastructure. I've got a couple of slides on papers and patents to come. But one key group to watch are called the key labs. They are state-backed, meaning government-backed, but they may be combinations of provincial money, university money, and private sector money, like the Zhejiang Lab in Hangzhou, which is between Zhejiang Province, Zhejiang University, and Alibaba, which is located in Hangzhou. The Beijing Academy Artificial Intelligence Institute has a $138 billion fund, for R&D. They have another thing that they have done that is very interesting this year is what they call the Eastern Data Western Computing Framework of an integrated computing grid across different regions so that it will be easier to scale up training data and develop much more cohesive AI. Now, the government gets to see everything that's on the inside, so they're pretty happy with that. But industry innovations in China are happening both from the big players like Alibaba and Baidu, so forth, and also from a number of rising unicorn companies. First, India accounted for 23% of all of AI publications, academic research publications in the year 2023. US only accounted for 9%. Of the citations of those publications, India accounted for 22.8, 22.6%, and the US accounted for 13% of the citations. But when you get to the top 100 papers in AI, the majority came from the US and 34 or 35 come from China. Now, you do see other countries on this list, and it's nice to see that Hong Kong is there. It's nice to see South Korea is there. It's nice to see Singapore is there. Japan, not there. I mean, that's kind of a shock to me. But in regard to research publications, China is definitely pulling its weight. And in terms of the number of AI patents granted, this is percentage. This is not total number of patents, right? But of all the AI patents granted, China accounted for 69.7% of them in the year 2024, or 2023, I'm sorry. Whereas the US is now only accounting for about 13% of all new patents in AI. So that's a huge turnaround. It also means that the Chinese are publishing and patenting, which makes the descriptions of what are publicly available. They are not kept secret. So this is definitely a way of moving forward with confidence. The US has a lot more notable AI models. This is from Stanford's AI index this year. We have 40 notable models, and there are only 15 notable models inside China. Notice again that South Korea had only one out of this, and they're the only East Asian country on the list. And of the notable AI models, you've got Alibaba, and the second one, Alibaba Cloud, really shows how a lot of AI models work. Their AI cloud includes more than 100 pre-trained models that are targeted toward enterprise customers. But Baidu has, ErnieBot, and SenseTime has SenseNova, Tencent has Hunyuan. And, these are all very recent, 2023. 2024 that these things came out. And China also has very hot unicorn companies. These really look like the golden opportunity Silicon Valley companies I was talking about. So Baichuan Intelligence was founded in 2023. It's already raised $740 million. Now, just in March this year, they cut back on their basic R&D and they announced 100 people were getting laid off. So people are wondering if they've stopped growing. DeepSeek is the one that really made a lot of news here. The DeepSeek R1 model really matches or exceeds the performance of Western models that are twice the size. And it only took them $6 or $7 million to develop it, as opposed to $500 million. So DeepSeek is not hurting for money, though. They just closed a $300 million Series B round. Minimax is an interesting multimodal AI model that is used for generating videos and music and that kind of thing. And so sure enough, they've been sued by Disney and Warner Brothers just this month. Moonshot AI has the Kimi AI platform, which is actually started by people, Moonshot was started by people from Google, and they have raised more than $1.6 billion in less than 3 years of the company's life. So I'm sure they're using a lot of the money to build out these big models, but it's still kind of staggering. And Jipu AI also has raised 1.2 billion, but it took them 6 years to do it. Oh my. Anyway, notice that Jipu has investors from here. Sequoia was in it, and Qiming Venture Partners was run by a guy named Gary Rochelle. He was one of the lead partners. It is a Shanghai-based fund, and I think Gary has moved back to the US now, but I think when they invested in Jipu, he was still there. So you've got these hot AI unicorns in China. Is China succeeding? Well, the performance of their top models in comparison to the US top models against various benchmarks sure are getting close. They have made rapid progress just in the last 3 years. So, yeah, I think that there's two ways to look at it. Competition is scary, but also in a sports league, if the other team's better, you get better. And that's probably the right way for Silicon Valley to look at this. So moving on to Japan. Japan for a long time has seen industrial competitiveness as a truly national security issue. Also, industrial competitiveness, the companies got to use AI is one of the things there. But not only that, there is this awareness that in an aging society and a shrinking population, you're going to need robots doing an awful lot more. And AI can help with a lot of problems that aging population have. There is some university-based leading edge research in Japan. One of the most famous professors is Professor Matsuo at the University of Tokyo. His lab has generated a number of startup companies in Japan. There are, in some ways, similar to the US, large government programs that are matched by industry efforts, where industry is devoting a lot of effort to leverage the government money. So there is this AI Promotion Act that was just passed this year that's focusing on accelerating development. And the Japanese government has committed about 10 trillion yen through 2030 to AI, semiconductors, and quantum computing. That's pretty broad. It was about 9.3 billion of that money, the 65 billion, was going into semiconductors, including this big manufacturing that they're doing up in Hokkaido Rapids. And it also includes public grants to private sector firms for data center expansion. But it's being matched by $70 billion of commitments to the same research from the large companies. The problems with Japan, first of all, shortage of talent. Just about everywhere except the US and maybe China are really having a shortage. They have predicted in Japan that they will need an additional 789,000 software engineers by 2030. Guess what? There are a lot of initiatives to start to bring people in from India. And the pattern may start to look like the US. If we have trouble with foreign students to American universities, when all that happened this spring, the provost of a major Japanese national university said to me, Dasher-san, do you think this is our chance? Yeah. So if you do it right. So I do think that, Japan is going to internationalize. 97% of Japanese companies are doing reskilling because it's very culturally unpopular to lay people off. And corporate adoption is 78%. By comparison, corporate adoption of AI is 83% in China and 85% in China and 83% in South Korea. So China, Japan, China, South Korea are in the heavy adoption group. A lot of spending is predicted. Remember, we are in 2025 right now, so they're predicting a lot on the right side of this graph that hasn't happened yet. Probably there will be a lot of money put into this. A cumulative annual growth rate of 38%. The old guard companies in Japan are doing really interesting things. So with Toyota, right down the road in Palo Alto, the Toyota Research Institute is doing some leading edge research in areas of not only autonomous driving, which you kind of expect, but robotics and smart manufacturing. SoftBank has been a big international player from Japan. I mentioned here that they have a $40 billion partnership with OpenAI, but they have invested worldwide, not only through the Vision Fund, but through various kinds of channels in AI. They have their own LLM, their own language model, and SoftBank Robotics was where Pepper came from. NTT, the old Japanese phone company, bought out its subsidiary, NTT Data. NTT Data was a very interesting IT company in Japan and was very active in making acquisitions in the United States and elsewhere. But they have their own smart AI agent ecosystem project, and the company has pledged to invest $52 billion in AI in the 5 years from 2023 to 27. Fujitsu has its own AI model. They also have a platform that is used for kind of businesses. They're looking especially at applications in healthcare and cybersecurity. They're doing a lot with startup companies here. They have a very active group in Silicon Valley called Fujitsu Labs of America. NEC has their own LLM that supposedly has the highest accuracy for Japanese language processing. And they're also very strong in areas like facial recognition and biometrics, and also smart city systems. Sony, 5 years ago, established Sony AI, and sure enough, it's focusing in gaming and entertainment and so forth. It's using kind of a grand challenge project approach where you can go to their website and see what grand challenges they're doing. And the last one for this page is Mitsubishi Electric, that has a platform aiming at compact AI, as would be more appropriate for edge processing, right? Mobility or factory equipment, edge devices. I could have put Hitachi up here. I could have put a number of other companies up here, but this is a good sample of probably the companies that are the most worth watching. In the startup scene, there was only one Japanese startup that I have found that really has a fundraising and growth pattern that's similar to the golden opportunity startups, and that's Sakana AI. So Sakana AI was founded by ex-Google engineers. It had, I think Andreessen Horowitz or somebody from here was an early investor in them, and they're in a hot topic. They have raised $230 million since 2021. And yeah, there's also one much older unicorn in the AI space, a company named Preferred Networks, that has its own LLM, but its business focus has been on solutions for large customers that require a lot of customization. So it really hasn't gotten out into just plastering the market with it. Yeah, they've raised $152 million, but I think the last time they raised money was 2018. Yeah, and there are some new interesting AI intensive companies that are still relatively early stage, including one that speaks here in 2 weeks. Edge Cortex, which is developing edge processing from the chip level up for edge devices. And also Integral AI spoke for us in our entrepreneurship series this spring. It's looking at artificial general intelligence and superintelligence. Most of the AI startups in Japan are application layer. They're not really hitting the LLMs or the actual infrastructure. And a lot of them are nice, but would not be very interesting to Silicon Valley VCs. What can I say? I think this company, ExoWizards, is a great example. They have AI solutions for aging society and healthcare. They started in 2016. They raised 6.2 billion yen, would be about $40 million total. But part of that was after they went IPO, they got a private equity investment. So I don't know exactly how much that was, but they went IPO in 5 years, and it's a relatively small company. Nice, they're probably profitable, but not going to really shake up the world. So that's kind of the situation in Japan. With South Korea overlaps. It talks a lot about sovereign AI, and that looks like the kind of insecurities of the group that don't want to be controlled by the other countries' big firms. But like Group One, it's really aiming at developing world-leading status in various aspects of AI. I think the most exciting thing just happened last month. The government of South Korea has created 5 consortia of tech companies, each of which is going to develop independent foundation LLM model, each of which will have its own focus area. This looks a little bit like what China did in 2017 with the National AI Project, where they gave, autonomous vehicles to Baidu, and they gave image processing to SenseTime and so forth. Here it's Naver Cloud. Naver is a big company now, but they were a startup company in memory. Upstage is a real startup company. SK Telecom, one of their big, phone companies. NCAI was a spinoff from a gaming company, and LG's AI Research, which is really doing a lot on robotics. The government has pledged $383 million to this project through 2027. But they also say that at the end of this year, they may cut one of the companies. And by 2027, there are only 2 companies left in, two teams left in this project. The government is continuing to make big commitments. In the budget request that just came out this month, they're increasing their R&D overall in the budget by 19.3%, of which AI R&D is going to account for almost a third of it. So they're definitely serious about this. And, the private sector is very active. The heir of LG, along with a serial entrepreneur from outside Korea, have decided to get together and fund the world's largest data center that they announced in February this year. So, you're seeing interesting things from the National Lab ETRI. They have created a text-to-image generator and also a text-to-video kind of platform that is very fast in terms of how it does processing. Yeah, interesting startups. The thing about Korean startups that I find interesting is they go all the way from the chip level up to the application layer, not just application company. So let me tell you about India, and we will post the slides to our website. They'll go up within a day or so. So sovereign AI is a big word in India. This is definitely a focus of Indian government policy. Notice that India is already an incredibly important market for the giant IT companies here. It's OpenAI's second largest market in the world. US is third. Microsoft is pledged to spend $3 billion expanding its AI infrastructure in India. And both Google and Meta have partnerships with Reliance Industries to build data centers and promote the use of AI in industry. So the kind of big government innovation program that was announced is called the India AI Mission, and it started in 2023. There's also something called the India Stack, which bundles the state services for biometric ID. Remember, they were able to get biometric ID for over 1 billion people, and their unified payments interface system they're making that available to AI developers to help, that's incredible. And they have a multi-language platform that's been built by the government in 2022 called Bashini that is, it includes over 300 pre-trained AI models. In India, cost is a major constraint. Even the US IT vendors are typically selling their tools for about 1/2 to 1/5 the cost of what companies have to pay in order to use them here. So that's going to drive a lot of things in India. Indian startups are involved in not so much on the chip level, but a lot on the kind of basic language model to do a voice first AI language model. We have coming to present here on October 14th, Navana Technology is doing that. And we also have an infrastructure platform that will be in that same program. We've got a panel of speakers from India on October 14th that is developing AI native enterprise applications specifically for the India market. Yeah, otherwise you get kind of what you would expect. Good applications. Some have raised quite a bit of money, and money goes a lot further in India. There's one AI platform for mobility called Krutrem that was founded in 2023, and it's already raised more than $300 million. So that starts to look like the Silicon Valley golden opportunity. So coming up in the series, next week, I'm very happy that Shane Gu from Google DeepMind is going to talk about lessons from China and Japan on AI, and also opportunities in Asia. 2 weeks from today, we have the CEO of Edge Cortex, the AI computing company from Japan, plus his investor one of his investors coming to talk in the session. 3 weeks from today, we've got a panel from India, 2 entrepreneur CEOs and an investor that will talk about what's going on in that country. And we go on. We eventually lead up to Kai-Fu Lee as our closing keynote. And Mr. Lee wrote the book AI Superpowers about US-China competition in AI. And so I wonder if he will update it. This was about 6 years ago when the book first came out. So that's really what I have for you today. I did a lot of talking to understand what we're talking about. Please use this as reference about AI. If people have see mistakes in what I put together, I would very much appreciate it. Okay. I will try to make changes if I need to. And also, kind of some of the big Asian countries. I didn't get to talk about Singapore today. I didn't get to talk about Southeast Asia, other countries, but we will address them in this series. So that's it. Thank you very much for your attention. Floor is open to questions. Oh, there you are. Go ahead.
So I know that in the US for a couple of years now, there's a bit of backlash in AI and automation replacing the workforce.
Yeah.
And you talked about how Japan, which is also a pretty postmodern country, is is like turning more toward reskilling than layoffs.
Well, they're turning toward reskilling, but the labor force is shrinking. They actually have a shrinking population. So their attitude toward robotics and automation has not happened like it has here. People are generally thinking that they will still have a job even after AI comes in.
Do you think that reskilling could ever be a solution for the US, like in terms of automation replacing like blue collar and water level jobs?
I think it will have to be. It will have to be. People are not going to disappear, and they need something to do. Now, it will not necessarily be directly connected to the job that they had in the company where they've been replaced. Up at the creative work level, I think that there's going to be a great opportunity in continuing education with teeth for people who really want to learn new kinds of skills. For people in like customer service jobs or people who do call center work and that kind of thing, it's going to be automated. Taxi drivers, it's going toward automation. So what can people like that aspire to? What are the kind of deep skills that they have? And a lot of it has to do with communication person to person. And AI has not gotten to the point where it replaces the human in communication. You still need human in the loop somehow. So I do think there are jobs that these people will need to learn how to do. But this is something that it's bigger than what the companies will pay for. And it's absolutely something that we must make some, investment on a national level. Thanks. Great question. Other questions?
So we just had a quick question as you talked about AI sovereignty in those nations that are sort of migrating that way. Is that due to international relations with the sort of the primary drivers there? What seems to be the motivation for that versus collaboration?
Well, I think it's really the issue that they don't want to see themselves with a big jigsaw puzzle and a piece missing. So that's why if they have the resources, they want to go all the way from the chip level up to the application level. And if you can't go to the chip level, then at least you want to have an infrastructure that will be friendly to your companies. If everybody in the world is dependent on the AI platforms from here, might not be good for anybody, right? There is this whole kind of antitrust thing about wanting to have competition in the system. Great question. Thank you.
There's also one on.
Oh, okay. So I can't see them because of my.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah, hold on. I stopped sharing. I can see it. The negative environmental impacts of AI. So that's a great question, Sarah. I think that part of the whole movement toward AI efficiency is motivated so that you don't take so much energy, right? I mean, it's really an energy question with AI. AI itself is not directly generating fossil fuels. What I'm fascinated to see that some countries are really starting to invest in very new energy technologies because they see the demand from AI. Japan is really getting interested in fusion energy. And, possibly a small fusion reactor generating 1 gigawatt of power next to the data center. So I know that people are looking for that kind of thing, whether it's fusion or whether it's a small fission reactor. But it's really the energy that people are worried about with the environment. I think that there are some things that AI can be used for in analysis that could be used to optimize an energy system too. So there are positive things that AI can do for sustainable development. Thanks, Sarah. Great question. You had a question. I think, yeah.
I really liked what you said to Naga about continuing education.
Yeah.
And the question I really wanted to ask is, you studied linguistics here at Stanford, like decades ago, right?
Right.
And now you're here lecturing to
Previous
us
line.
about the AI boom and the
Yeah.
context of AI in our world in 2025. So my question is for like all these young folks in this auditorium, how would you recommend that we live out our formative years continuing to learn and I guess optimizing our education in light of AI?
First of all, find something that is at the core of a lot of things. I was in some ways fortunate. I didn't do this planning, okay? But linguistics is about the structure and dynamics of a system that is fundamental to human interaction. So it's got applications everywhere. There were people who got PhDs in linguistics who analyzed the voice recordings of planes before they crash. You've got that kind of work outside the academic world. Physics has been that for a lot of engineering. It turns out that my work on linguistics was directly applicable to studying the process of innovation. Words change meaning because people use language innovatively. And so, that helped me. I think that from this point, most important thing is to find something that has lots of applications in different areas, and then find what you enjoy the most and try to spend some time thinking about why you enjoy it. What is it that's really interesting? Not just say, oh, I like this the most. Really think about why you like it the most, because that's the area you will do the best in, no matter what direction you go. I think that with regard to artificial intelligence, the current boom is going to last for quite some time. But we're already seeing quantum computing on the horizon. And I think if I was 20 years old, I might be interested in that horizon as much as I'm interested in, more advanced development of AI. Yeah, so that's probably the best I can do. Thanks. Great question. Go ahead. I seem to be answering all the questions over here. I don't mean to ignore everybody else. Go ahead.
You mentioned that a lot of the development in China is based on public things, so patents and research publications. How would you compare that to the way that it works sort of in the industry in the US, where a lot of it is like industry secrets and things like that? And how do you think that affects the landscape?
One of the places where it's most striking, and you have to watch how you interpret this, most of the AI models in China are open source. Most of the AI models here, the big ones, are closed. And that certainly the big companies want to keep it secret. Now, of course, that also fits the situation in China where the government knows everything you're doing anyway. And I think that you have to be careful about that. That's a national policy question. Do you want to encourage people to keep secrets because it certainly doesn't get stolen, or it shouldn't get stolen, it's harder to steal? Or do you want to encourage them to publish and encourage them to patent so that other people can see your work and move forward more fast? As a general rule, for various reasons, you want to be public. Part of that's your reputation. And if you build a brand value in the business world, brand value typically is measured in hundreds of millions of dollars. So I do think, I tend to think that it's interesting to me because we have this sort of tendency to be prejudiced about Chinese innovation and saying that, they copied us or whatever. But you can't do that if it's patented or if it's published. If it's in an open publication, then there are people reading that your paper, your draft, and seeing if it's been borrowed from somebody else. So I do think that the main reason I mentioned it is to show that there's an awful lot of indigenous innovation happening right there. Maybe one more question. Back in the back.
Hey, my question is, given where we are right now, which part of the stack in the AI model, with the AI models we have right now, which part of the stack do you think holds the most untapped potential for improving them? So like the chip or hardware layer, the model design or training, or like the actual application of the famous layer?
I think that there are applications in I think there are opportunities in multiple places. I'll be really interested to hear what Shane says about this next week. But my sense is that if you really have something that could be a killer, then yeah, go for it. Develop the new model, get all the money that you can, get the big investment that you can. But even if you don't have that, if you've got something that provides real value, that people can see the value, it's very much worth doing. And I think there are opportunities at the application layer, the enabling technology, the infrastructure layer, all over the place. The thing is just, in an uncertain time, remember to aim for resilience. Over the short term, what happens if people aren't, if the market's not developing the way you thought it would? Back in the dot-com crash, it was all because people didn't have high-speed internet, communications was too expensive, and it was just the world was not ready for the technology. What's the equivalent here? I think to some extent it's Gen AI. People are asking Gen AI to answer the wrong questions. They're expecting accuracy instead of admitting that hallucination is a feature and not a bug. So if you look at those kind of things, I think that's what you can avoid. Make sure you're using the technology for something that people need and that they will be willing to pay money for even in difficult economic times. Thanks, and maybe that's a good note to end on today. We've got some refreshments outside. Love to talk to you more informally. And thanks very much for coming. Hope to see you next week.